Have you ever stopped and asked yourself this question: who actually has the power to stop you? Not who you blame, not who you fear, but who truly decides how far you go. Most people never ask this honestly, and that's why they stay trapped. From the moment you are aware of the world, you are taught a quiet lesson: that limits exist, that permission is required, that approval is safety. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to believe that other people hold the keys to your life. You think someone's opinion can hold you back. You think rejection can break you. You think failure can stop you. But that belief is the illusion. Look closely. No one can reach inside your mind and pull the switch that shuts you down. They can criticize. They can ignore you. They can doubt you. But they cannot command your will. They cannot cancel your ability to rise. They cannot stop movement unless you choose stillness. Here is the truth most people avoid because it's uncomfortable. External forces do not create internal defeat. They only expose it. The world applies pressure to everyone. Pressure is neutral. It does not weaken you by default. It reveals where you have already given up on yourself. Think about it. Two people face the same obstacle. One collapses. The other adapts. Same situation. Different outcome. Why? Because power never lived outside of them. It lived in their response. Society is built to convince you that you are small, that rules are permanent, that systems are unbreakable, that success belongs to a few chosen people. This belief keeps people obedient, predictable, and quiet. But history never moved forward because people followed limits. It moved forward because someone refused to accept them. The most dangerous cage is not poverty. It is not rejection. It is not failure. The most dangerous cage is the belief that you need permission to become who you are meant to be. Once that belief enters your mind, everything slows down. You wait instead of act. You doubt instead of decide. You hesitate instead of move. And hesitation feels safe, but it is silent destruction. Understand this clearly. People do not control your destiny. Circumstances do not dictate your ceiling. Your past does not own your future. The only thing that has ever truly stopped you is the moment you agreed with limitation. Every time you said, maybe they're right. Every time you thought, I'm not ready. Every time you told yourself, this isn't for people like me. That is where the brakes were applied. But here's the shift. The moment you see this illusion, it begins to lose its power. When you realize that nothing external can stop internal momentum, fear changes shape. It no longer feels like a wall. It feels like noise. And noise can be ignored. You are not weak for feeling pressure. You are human. But you are powerful when you refuse to surrender your direction to it. Strength is not loud confidence. Strength is the quiet decision to move forward, even when doubt is present. If you stay until the end of this message, you will gain something most people never do: clarity. Not motivation that fades, but a mental switch that changes how you see resistance forever. Because once you understand where real power lies, no voice can hold you back, no obstacle can break you, and no force can stop you unless you allow it. Once you understand that no one truly controls you, a new question appears: why do people try to hold you back in the first place? This is where most people get confused. They assume opposition means they are doing something wrong. In reality, resistance often appears when you are doing something right. Human beings are driven by comparison. When someone around you decides to grow, it forces others to look at their own stagnation. And not everyone is ready for that mirror. People who try to limit you are rarely powerful. They are afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of being left behind. Afraid that your courage will expose their excuses. So they disguise fear as advice. They call doubt realism. They label their insecurity as concern. And if you are not careful, you will mistake their weakness for wisdom. This is basic human psychology. When someone cannot rise, they try to lower the ceiling. When someone cannot move forward, they question your direction. Not because your path is wrong, but because it reminds them of the path they abandoned. Notice this pattern. The loudest discouragement never comes from people building something meaningful. It comes from those standing still, those who settled, those who chose comfort over growth, and now protect that choice by attacking ambition. Criticism feels personal, but it rarely is. It is emotional self-defense. Your potential threatens their identity. That is why approval disappears when you change. That is why support fades when you stop playing small. Not everyone wants to see you win, because your win challenges their story. But here is the key shift that frees you. Opposition is not a stop sign. It is confirmation. If you were truly insignificant, no one would care. If your direction had no power, no one would resist it. Resistance shows that movement is happening. Think of pressure like weight in a gym. The weight is not there to crush you. It is there to reveal your strength. Avoiding resistance keeps you weak. Facing it forces growth. People will project their limits onto you because that is all they know. They measure your future using their past. They judge your dreams based on their failures. But their experiences are not your destiny. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be aligned with yourself. The moment you stop seeking permission, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop explaining your vision to people who lack vision. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. And when that happens, control shifts back to where it belongs. Not in their opinions, not in their approval, not in their expectations. It returns to your decisions. You begin to see clearly. Some people are not obstacles. They are filters. They reveal who can walk with you and who cannot. And that clarity is not lonely. It is liberating. Because once you understand why people try to hold you back, their words lose weight, their doubt loses authority, and their limits no longer feel contagious. You realize something essential. Their fear is not your responsibility, their comfort is not your mission, and their approval is not required for your growth. When you stop internalizing other people's fear, you reclaim energy you didn't know you were losing. And with that energy, something changes inside you. You stop asking, why are they against me? And you start asking, how far can I go if I stop listening? That question doesn't weaken you. It prepares you for the truth you're about to face next. When you stop listening to the voices around you, a harder truth comes into focus. If no one outside of you has real power, then there is only one place left to look: inside. This is where most people turn away, because it is easier to blame resistance than to confront responsibility. It is easier to point at enemies than to face inner doubt. Here is the truth that changes everything. Nothing can break you from the outside unless something inside has already given up. Pain does not destroy people. Failure does not end them. Loss does not erase them. What breaks people is the moment they decide they are done trying. Self-doubt is quiet, but it is lethal. It does not scream. It whispers. It says, maybe later. It says, you're not ready yet. It says, what if you fail? And each time you listen, you hand over a piece of your strength. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is natural. Fear is part of growth. The real danger is hesitation, because hesitation trains the mind to retreat. Every time you pause instead of act, the mind learns avoidance. Every time you quit to escape discomfort, the mind learns weakness. And over time, quitting starts to feel logical instead of painful. This is how people are broken without being touched. They don't lose because they were defeated. They lose because they slowly stopped believing they could win. Look closely at moments that almost ended you. The rejection, the failure, the embarrassment, the loneliness. You survived all of it. So ask yourself honestly, if those moments didn't destroy you, what makes you think the next one will? The human mind is powerful, but it must be directed. If you allow it to focus only on risk, it will paralyze you. If you train it to focus on growth, it will carry you through chaos. Strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is action in the presence of fear. Unstoppable people do not feel less pain. They simply refuse to let pain make decisions for them. They understand something most people never learns. Quitting feels like relief, but it steals your future. Endurance feels heavy, but it builds your identity. There is a difference between being tired and being finished. Being tired means you rest. Being finished means you surrender. And surrender always happens internally first. When you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this training me for? Suffering changes meaning. Struggle becomes instruction. Pain becomes preparation. This shift is everything. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. You stop seeing obstacles as personal attacks. You stop measuring your worth by ease. You realize that resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you build every time you choose to continue. And here is the most important part. Once you understand that you are only breakable from the inside, fear loses its authority, failure loses its threat, and pressure loses its ability to control you. Because even when everything feels heavy, one truth remains. As long as you are still willing to move, you are not broken. And when you truly accept that, something powerful begins to form. A different way of thinking, a different standard for yourself, a mindset that does not wait for confidence, but creates it through action. That is where unstoppable momentum is born. When momentum begins to form, the way you think starts to change. Not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly and permanently. Unstoppable people do not wait to feel ready. They understand something most never grasp. Readiness is created by movement, not before it. Confidence is not a requirement, it is a result. Most people believe they need certainty before action. They wait for motivation to appear. They wait for fear to disappear. They wait for approval to arrive. And while they wait, life moves on without them. Unstoppable people move differently. They act while unsure. They move while afraid. They decide while confidence is missing. This is not recklessness. This is psychological strength. The human brain adapts to behavior. When you act despite discomfort, the mind learns courage. When you avoid discomfort, the mind learns fear. Action rewires identity. That is why unstoppable people are not defined by talent. They are defined by consistency. They show up when motivation fades. They continue when excitement disappears. They remain when others retreat. Talent opens doors. Consistency breaks walls. They do not seek permission to grow. They do not explain their dreams to people who cannot carry them. They understand that approval is optional, but discipline is not. There is a quiet confidence in people who know their direction. They are not loud. They are not defensive. They are focused. They measure progress internally, not through applause. They are not distracted by comparison. They understand that another person's success does not threaten their own path. This mindset removes desperation. When you are no longer chasing validation, you stop leaking energy. You stop reacting to opinions. You stop adjusting your pace to please others. Unstoppable people build systems, not moods. They do not rely on feeling good. They rely on structure, habits, standards, non-negotiables. They know that motivation comes and goes, but systems remain. When resistance appears, they do not ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What's required now?" They solve instead of complain. They adapt instead of retreat. This does not make them emotionless. It makes them intentional. They feel doubt, but they do not obey it. They feel fear, but they do not follow it. They feel tired, but they do not surrender to it. This is the difference. While others look for inspiration, they rely on identity. They see themselves as someone who continues, someone who finishes, someone who does not quit. And identity is powerful. The mind will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. Once you adopt this way of thinking, resistance changes shape, obstacles become instructions, setbacks become feedback, delays become training. Nothing feels personal anymore. Nothing feels final. You stop asking if something is possible. You start asking how long you are willing to stay in motion. And that question has only one real answer: as long as it takes. Because once you think like someone who cannot be stopped, stopping is no longer an option. When you reach this point, something becomes undeniable. You were never waiting for permission. You were waiting for ownership. Ownership changes everything. The moment you stop asking who is in your way, you realize the path was always open. The moment you stop fearing being judged, you gain freedom. The moment you stop negotiating with doubt, you step into authority over your life. Power is not given, it is claimed. Claiming your power does not mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes yours. You stop drifting. You stop reacting. You stop living according to expectations that were never meant for you. You understand that obstacles are not signs to stop. They are invitations to rise. Every challenge is asking one question: will you stay the same or will you grow? Most people wait for the perfect moment, But there is no perfect moment. There is only a decision. Decide to move even when clarity is incomplete. Decide to act even when fear is present. Decide to continue even when progress feels slow. Momentum does not come from speed. It comes from refusal to quit. Once you stop giving your power away to opinions, rejection loses its sting. Failure loses its drama. Delay loses its frustration. You begin to see clearly. Nothing external has the authority to define you unless you hand it that authority. Not the past, not criticism, not mistakes, not fear. Strength is built in small decisions repeated daily. Choosing discipline over comfort. Choosing truth over excuses. Choosing action over waiting. You don't need to feel unstoppable to be unstoppable. You just need to keep moving. And here is the quiet truth that changes everything. Life does not stop people. People stop themselves. They stop when things get uncomfortable. They stop when validation disappears. They stop when effort is no longer praised. But when you remove those conditions, nothing can slow you down. You no longer depend on motivation. You rely on commitment. You no longer search for confidence. You build it through consistency. This is what freedom looks like. Not the absence of struggle, but the mastery of response. When pressure comes, you stand. When doubt appears, you move anyway. When fear speaks, you listen, and then act in spite of it. You stop asking if you are capable. You start proving it through action. And the world responds differently to someone who refuses to stop. Not because the world suddenly becomes kind, but because persistence bends reality. Time aligns with consistency. Opportunities reveal themselves to those still standing. Paths appear to those who keep walking. Remember this and carry it with you. No one can hold you back unless you agree to stay small. No one can break you unless you abandon yourself. No one can stop you unless you choose to stop. Your power has always been here, waiting, not for permission, but for decision. And once that decision is made, there is nothing left to fear, only distance to cover.